Hey everybody, welcome back. This is our third installment in our 4 video series with Tanya over at Project Happy Home and I. We are talking about Essentialism, this amazing book. If you haven't purchased it, you definitely should. But we're going to talk about the third section of this book, and that is eliminate. And we're talking about how to kind of not get yourself into commitments, and also how to uncommit from commitments that you're already in. So it starts out this section of the book with a quote, and it says, "The right no spoken at the right time in history can change the course of history." And I love that, because you think back on different things where people have stood up for what they believed is true, and they've just said, I'm putting my foot down, no more of this, and how it's changed the course of history, and how we get to participate in that even today. And I really love that, and so that's why I think it's such a positive thing to think about saying no. But one of the things that I found really fascinating about this, and that really kind of makes you kind of stop and think, is that you can say all the things about stopping and not committing to things, but it takes real courage to have that play out in your life. And I would 100% agree. It's easier for some people to say no than for others. However, my highest level of contribution, what I put things through, my filter is homeschooling my kids. So I look at things that come, opportunities that come my way, and I'm like, is this going to add to our homeschool, or is it going to detract from? And even if it does add to, what's the time commitment and all of that? Because even if it adds to, it's going to take away in some way when you add something to your plate. So I really liked how they incorporated the courage piece, because that is what I feel like it takes. And, we talk about building up your courage. So I feel like this book allows you to get part of it, and then you build to it. You understand a little bit, and then you implement that, and then you understand a little bit more, and you implement that. And it eventually comes out to be like how this book describes being limitless, because you have put limits on yourself. And I really like that. And I'll explain more about that in a little bit. But there are some really good reasons why we are afraid of saying no, why we fear saying no to people. We think we might miss out on some really great opportunities. We don't like to rock the boat. Most people don't anyways. We don't want to burn bridges. If someone has asked us to do something and we really respect that person, we don't want to break that relationship, or we don't want to feel like that relationship has been hurt in some way because we've said no. And we also don't like disappointing people. For the majority of people, they don't want to disappoint others, especially someone they really look up to. So as a mom, I find that there's a very real example that I can give you that I struggle with pretty much every day. But it is talking on the phone with other adults. And I might have promised my daughter I will play a game with her, or play something, or give her a makeover, whatever. Insert the blank of what I've promised. And then I will get a phone call. And it will be a great phone call that could have been 15 or 20 minutes, but instead it's an hour or longer, and that time frame has passed. And then it's like on to the next thing, on to dinner, or on to, whatever comes next. And I've missed out on that opportunity that I had with my daughter. And they give a really great example in the book of a father who was, highly successful, but he had taken his daughter along to one of his conferences, and he had promised her a night out on the town. They were going to, go and shop and eat and do all these fun things. And he ran into an old friend on the way out of the conference, and the old friend invited him and his daughter to also a fun night, but just she knew it wouldn't be what they had talked about. And the dad was like, "That sounds great." And her heart just kind of fell. And then he was like, "But I have promised my daughter an amazing night, so some other time." And I love that. It's like, that what is your highest level of contribution? He knew it was investing in his daughter, and that stuck with her for the rest of her life. And it really bonded them together. And it's not that we have to make our kids like the center of the universe, but you understand the difference. Like, making them feel valued is really quite powerful, and we have the power to do that. And so I love that example. And for myself, I really feel like as a mom and a homeschooler, like that's what I want to do. I want to value my kids. And even though I spend all day with them, just building into them through school and through the conversations we have, it doesn't end when school's done. And sometimes I feel like I'm done, like I give them to my husband. I'm like, here you go. I'll go make dinner. And that's fine too, to just have some alone time. It's totally fine, especially when they're little. You really need that. But as they get older, investing in them and when they seek you out, oh my goodness, like take those opportunities. And I am preaching to myself right now because it is a hard thing to do. We can't be perfect all the time, but it is something to work towards. What is really hard a lot of times when you're faced with an opportunity or a commitment or something like that, what's really hard is to separate the decision from the relationship. So let's say a good friend comes and asks you to be on whatever, or to help her start whatever. It's really hard sometimes because you want to value that friendship and you think saying yes will help that. In reality, you have to still put it through the filter. Like, is this going to help my homeschool? Is this going to help my, my relationship with my kids, or whatever it is that you put your opportunities that come your way, whatever filter you put them through, you still have to do that no matter who is asking. And that's a really hard thing to do. Another thing that's hard is you're going to have to accept that you're not going to be liked all the time, especially in the current climate of our world. You're going to have to make some decisions, and it's not going to be the popular decision with everyone. And so that is going to have to be something that you just have to kind of get your mind wrapped around, and it's hard. It's very, very hard, especially if you are more of a, we're just wired up to want to get along with each other. I really believe that. And so if you are one of those people who really feels what we'd call like a people pleaser, it's really hard. And so this is something that you just have to work at. Again, it's building the courage. So we've talked about like how not to commit. So then the book talks about uncommitting from certain things. And that's really hard to do. Sometimes we don't even know, we don't even see what we need to uncommit from. And then other times it's just really hard to uncommit from something. So they give you some really tangible things to think about and to help you process. So the first thing is in this how to avoid commitment traps type of scenario is pretend that you don't own it yet. Pretend that you're not involved yet in whatever commitment it is. Let's say you've started a homeschool co-op, or you've started a homeschool field trip group, or whatever, fill in the blanks of what you've started. It's really hard, number one, when you feel like you do own it because you helped start it. So it's harder to give it up. But think about if you didn't already own it, or you weren't already participating in the way that you're participating, would you want to participate? If you weren't involved, would you see your group and say, yes, that's something I really find value in and I really want for my kids, or, whatever your filter is, and look at it from that perspective. And I think that's super helpful because sometimes we allow the stress to get to us and then we think, oh, it just needs to go. When in reality, it is giving a lot of value to what we are already doing, or our highest point of contribution, really. But there are more filters that you can put things through. So bear with me. So another way to do that, if you do find if it's a good fit or not, is to be aware of the status quo, the way things have always been done. Question the way things have always been done. And so sometimes you can change what the commitment is that you're doing. Sometimes you just need to stop it. So I like that. Like, think about, okay, this is the way it's always been done. So is that the way we always have to do it moving forward? Another area or idea, I guess, is to put it through this frame, this viewpoint. Stop doing something and see if it's missed. If you're sending out a ton of emails and it's kind of stressful and you're like trying to keep people updated and and it's kind of getting the best of you, stop sending the emails. Only send one a week or one a month or one every quarter or whatever it is. See if people miss it. If they don't, then you know that you can cut down on that particular point in your life. And I really like that. Another thing is getting over the FOMO. get over the fear of missing out. Do the JOMO, right? Joy of missing out. I love that. It gets easier as you get older, but the FOMO is really hard, especially for us Enneagram 7s, because we just want to participate. We just want to be a part of it. And it's fun. Like, it just gives life to us. However, you can't do that and still contribute to at your highest point of contribution. You just can't. So that's one thing. Another thing, when you're looking at a commitment that you've already committed to and you feel like it doesn't fit, stop trying to force the fit. So that is just straightforward. Stop trying to force the fit. So if you know deep down this is not a good fit for me, stop. And then another great example is get a second neutral opinion. I have actually went to my husband. I don't know if he would be considered neutral necessarily, but I have gone to my husband before and I've said, this is what I am doing. I feel like there's something that I could, that I need to back off on, but I don't see where it is. And he's been really valuable input in my life. And also, I had a mentor that I went to and asked her opinion, and she was just very much like, Joy, this is like real clear to me, but it's not to you because you're so in it. And I really have appreciated that advice, and it's made me see more clearly. So that's really a great piece of advice as well. And then the other thing is to pause before you speak. I was given this piece of advice actually when I first started directing classical conversations, because that is that's a big leadership role. And so I've really applied a lot of essentialism techniques to that role. And that was something that somebody told me right away. They're like, don't say yes. Just say, oh, that's great. I will think about that and get back to you. I can't even tell you, for a person like me, that was so freeing, because it's easier to say, that sounds great. Let me think about that. Then, yes, that sounds great. Let's do that. And then you go home and you think about it and you're like, crap, now I have to go back and say no. It's just hard. It's harder. So pause. Don't say yes right away. Think about it. Or, create your own verbiage for what you say to people that basically doesn't commit, but it gives them a feeling of positivity, but it doesn't commit. Like, oh, that's a really great idea. Let me think about that. Perfect, and it allows you time to think through scenarios. When you respond right away, it doesn't allow you that time to do that. So it's really important. There are other examples in the book. I'm not going through all of them of how to avoid commitment traps, but I just wanted to go through a few of them with you. And the last thing is, being an essentialist, you know that you have limits, and those limits make you limitless, and you see boundaries as liberating. They give a really good example in the book, and the example they give is there is a school and it's by a really busy highway, and the kids could only play right up near the school because the teachers were concerned about the traffic and all that, and so they could only play in this small area where the adults could watch them. Well, then they fenced the school yard, and the kids could go anywhere within that fenced area, and it was so wide open and so much more space to play. But once you create limits, then you can just go crazy within those limits. Not really, but you know what I mean. It just creates this feeling of, I have set up boundaries for myself, and so I know what I can commit to and what I shouldn't. And that is freeing. It's liberating. And it's really it turns on its head what we think of in our culture today. Oh, we're missing out. Oh, we should do this. Oh, we should do that. No. Find your highest point of contribution. For me, it's homeschooling my kids. Does it add to it? Does it take away from? Even if it adds to it, think through. Because no matter what it adds to your homeschool or, whatever, it's going to take away in other places. It's going to take time away in other places. So is the trade-off worth it? Is it worth it? I love this book. I love this section of this book because it really it forces you to stop and think, is this really what I want to do with my time? And my time is valuable. And to just kind of get that in your mind, it's very important. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure and check out the book if you want. Make sure and check out Tanya's video, and I will see you guys next week.